What if the legendary fury of the berserkers wasn't he, born of rage, alone but driven by a hidden sacrament, a sacrament of red-capped caps, whispered in shadow? A hush settles over the fjord at first light. Mist coils around the oaken prow of a beached longship. In the silence, a single form emerges. The Amanita muscaria, its scarlet cap freckled with ivory, half hidden beneath pine needles. The damp earth seems to breathe around it, each droplet of dew refracting a secret centuries old. We follow an unseen hand as it brushes aside moss, revealing the mushroom's gleaming gills. A distant drumbeat begins low, deliberate, echoing like a heartbeat beneath the forest floor. Shadowy figures in bearskins move at the edge of sight, their breaths misting in the chill air. Something sacred, something forbidden, lies in wait. Tonight, we reveal the real reason they embraced magic mushrooms and why it changed the face of war forever. Open on a mist-shrouded Nordic clearing at dawn. The camera drifts low, skimming dew-laden needles until it finds the flame-red cap of Amanita muscaria, nestled beneath ancient pines. No words only, the soft hush of waking forest. As sunlight slants through needles, the mushroom gleams like hidden treasure, its sacred aura as potent as any rune. Cut to warriors draped in bearskins, faces streaked with frost. Their eyes glow-eyed, unfocused as they lift carved horn cups to their lips. Flash cuts, a trembling hand holding a steaming brew, flames dancing across ritual-etched wood, shadows contorting on cabin walls. An ancient rite pulses through their veins, merging blood and steel into a single, unstoppable force. The drumbeat intensifies, each strike summoning a darker dawn. Painted warriors tread a circle of worn runes, their low chants swallowed by the wind. The forest itself seems to pulse in time with their hearts wild, relentless. Ahead lies science in cold chambers, saga in smoky halls, and rites forgotten beneath moss and memory. The truth beckons. These mushrooms may have fueled one of history's most feared forces. Tonight, we reveal the real reason they embraced magic mushrooms, and why it changed the face of war forever. A moonlit circle of warriors crouches on the shale beach, breath steaming into the still night. Torches gutter in the wind, their flickering light reveals ash-painted faces and reindeer antler horns glinting like cold steel. Phratis, the seer, hooded in bear fur, moves among them with solemn grace. In her hands is a carved wooden bowl, milk swirling around clusters of scarlet caps. She lifts it high, chanting low to unseen ancestors as the warriors bow their heads. A horn rings out twice deep, resonant calling the power of earth and blood. The circle tightens, each man's pulse quickening, waiting for the sacrament to break the boundary between flesh and fury. Leif the berserker steps forward, shoulders trembling beneath his bearskin cloak. Phratis offers the bowl. Milk drips from its rim like sacrificial blood. She intones, "Blood of earth, give me the bear's heart," and Leif closes his eyes, lifting the draught to his lips. His throat convulses as he drinks. Silence falls so deep it seems to swallow the surf's distant roar. Then his chest heaves, muscles knotting beneath skin. In the torchlight, his pupils widen until only black remains, veins darkening along his neck like living runes. He staggers once, twice, then straightens, breath turning from fear to feral calm, as if the beast within has claimed its host. Leif's roar rips through the night, a sound half man, half bear. He launches himself into the surf, ice-cold waves crashing around him. Water and fire collide as torchlight dances on salt spray. His form twists and blurs in slow motion, muscles rippling like storm-tossed oaks. The other warriors hold their ground, unblinking, as if this rebirth has played out 1,000 times before. Leaf emerges from the surf-transformed hair, plastered, eyes aflame, movements fluid and terrifying. He throws back his head and howls again, the echo lingering long after the image fades to black. In that scream lies both blessing and curse, a sacred madness ready to be unleashed on any foe. The camera snaps into motion. A modern UFC fighter paces in the cage, muscles taut, sweat gleaming under arena lights. He closes his eyes, breathes deep, then roars a primal release echoing through the crowd. His fists tighten. He's not here anymore, he's in the zone. A flow state where reflex overtakes reason, and fear dissolves into instinct. Sports psychologists call it transient hypofrontality. But centuries earlier, the sagas called it something else. Side by side, we watch. A fighter shadowboxing in his corner. A Viking pounding his chest before battle. Across time, the rituals echo. The goal is the same. Override hesitation, summon something inhuman. Cut to a quiet, sterile lab, bathed in blue light. A subject lies in an fMRI scanner, eyes closed, breathing slowly under the influence of psilocybin. On the monitor, neural pathways bloom in glowing webs of red, orange, and gold. Psilocybin, like Amanita muscaria, alters connectivity in the brain, especially in regions controlling fear, ego, and perception. Dr. Robin Carhart-Harris's research reveals that psilocybin reduces the brain's default mode network, dissolving the ego and loosening fear's grip. In Leaf's world, they didn't scan brains, they invoked gods. But the result may have been strikingly similar. Visual match. Leaf's trance face transitions into a brain scan, flickering like a flame. Today, warriors wear sneakers instead of fur, but the edge is still everything. Around the world, athletes, coders, and special forces operators experiment with microdosing psychedelics. Tiny, subperceptual doses taken not to hallucinate, but to focus. One hand fills a capsule with powdered psilocybin. Another, centuries ago, lays mushrooms in a carved bowl beside a fire. Different methods. Same goal. Sharpen the mind, blur the fear. Unlock the beast beneath the ribs. Quick crossfade. A desk stacked with supplements, a Viking altar flickering in torchlight. Across centuries, across science and saga, one question lingers. What if the berserkers weren't just madmen, but pioneers of altered states? Not with data, but with ritual. Not with labs, but with belief. Before EEGs, before brain scans, they knew how to summon the trance. They didn't need to name serotonin to feel it surge. We are only now catching up, mapping what they called magic, decoding what they danced into firelight. What ancient secret did they unlock long before neuroscience even knew what a synapse was? Fade from a berserker's wild gaze to a modern fighter in meditation breath, sensing in silence. A single red mushroom lingers on screen, slowly crossfading into a glowing neural web. Cut to black. What if the berserkers didn't take mushrooms to lose control but to transform? These weren't crude war drugs. They were sacraments. Ingestion was ritual, intentional, sacred. Amanita muscaria wasn't just about frenzy. It was the key to unlocking something beyond the self. In Norse cosmology, the physical and spiritual are woven together, 9 realms, tethered by Yggdrasil's roots. To become a berserker was to cross worlds. These warriors weren't just battle-hardened, they were altered, initiated, transfigured, through fire, chant, and sacrament. They became avatars of beasts, ancestors, and gods. Their madness had method. Their fury had form. Circling a fire, red mushrooms laid in patterned stone, they stepped beyond manhood into myth. This isn't just story. The evidence survives. If you know where to look. Old saga verses speak of howling transformations and blood-drunk breath. One line from Egil's saga describes warriors who felt no iron nor fire, possessed by something greater. Now science catches up. At Uppsala University, researchers analyzed Viking burial remains, hair and tooth samples laced with alkaloid residues matching Amanita muscaria. Dr. Hilda Ellis Davidson noted ritualistic references to the bear's gift in Norse poetic tradition, an echo of entheogenic practice cloaked in myth. From sagas to soil, a pattern emerges. Ritual, fungus, identity. The berserker wasn't just born, he was made, through rites etched in both memory and bone. A gloved hand holds a Viking jawbone under UV light. A saga manuscript fades in beside it. Two worlds, one truth. So what lies ahead? We'll reenact the ancient mushroom rite, as described in both saga and reconstruction. We'll hear from ethnobotanists who trace sacred fungi across cultures, neuropharmacologists who map altered states, and cultural psychologists who decode identity through ritual. We'll follow the thread from forest floor to battlefield, from trance to terror, to understand how mushrooms didn't just empower warriors, they bound them into legend. This is a story of sacred chemistry, forgotten rites, and a mystery science is only now beginning to explain. Join us as we step beyond myth, into the sacred groves where mushrooms made men into legends. Torches flare, drums rise, and a reenactor pulls a bearskin over his shoulders beneath a starlit sky. Fade to black. The sagas did not whisper, they roared. In Ynglinga saga, Snorri Sturluson describes warriors who raged like dogs or wolves. Neither fire nor iron could harm them. These were not metaphors, they were warnings. They were men turned monster, sacred fury made flesh. Skaldic poems speak of red gifts of the earth consumed before battle. In Havamal, the wisdom of Odin hints at rituals that veil the eyes and shake the soul. To modern ears, this sounds poetic. But read between the runes. These verses may encode real psychoactive rituals. Not exaggeration, but mnemonic. Not myth, but memory. When warriors donned bear or wolf skins, they weren't just dressing the part. They were becoming something else entirely, guided by trance, substance, and fire. In 2018, a peat bog in Denmark revealed more than a body, unearthed a truth. From the remains of a 9th century warrior, forensic teams extracted hair samples that tested positive for muscimol, the psychoactive compound in Amanita muscaria. Cold, preserved by centuries of silence, his body bore biochemical echoes of a mushroom rite. Nearby, in a burial mound outside Uppsala, archaeologists uncovered carved wooden bowls, stamped with unmistakable Amanita motifs, red caps ringed in white. The bowls lay beside weapons, charms, and ritual tools. Dr. Oster Bjorndal led the team that connected these dots. Pattern, placement, and residue all aligned. These weren't everyday graves. They were sanctified spaces for transformed warriors. The berserkers may have died in myth, but they were buried in evidence. Amanita muscaria doesn't work in raw form. Its psychoactive power lies dormant until unlocked. The key: time, heat, and knowing hands. Drying converts ibotenic acid mildly tocane to muscimol, the active compound responsible for hallucinations, pain dampening, and altered states. The Vikings likely understood this intuitively. Evidence shows mushrooms dried near longhouse fires, or smoked, even filtered through reindeer, urina method still used in Siberian shamanic rites. These weren't careless ingestions. They were calibrated. Intention met technique. Dr. Maria Salo notes the ritualistic rhythm. Pick, dry, dose, invoke. An ancient pharmacology, passed mouth to mouth. Mind to mind, the result was a delayed-release, compounder-controlled journey into fire and fury. Across the Arctic, other traditions mirrored the berserker path. Among Siberian tribes, Amanita was central to shamanic practice, communal ingestion, rhythmic drumming, and identity dissolution. The shaman would enter trance, take on animal forms, and speak with the dead. Norse accounts describe warriors becoming bears or wolves entering a liminal space where self and beast merged. Anthropologist Mircea Eliade called it an archaic technique of ecstasy. Professor Helena Jurgensen's diagrams show Indo-European cultures sharing trance motifs, animal transformation, sacramental fungi, and the ritual use of rhythm. It wasn't imitation, it was inheritance, a neuro-ritual archetype echoing from the steppes to the fjords. The berserker rite wasn't a violent outlier, it was the Norse version of a global pattern. Enter the mind's engine room. Modern neuroscience shows us what muscle does under the hood. It binds to GABA receptors, dampening neural activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center. This means less fear, less pain, more action. Simultaneously, muscle disrupts the brain's default mode network, dissolving the sense of self, while encouraging cortical crosstalk regions of the brain begin sharing information in novel, hypersensory ways. In a berserker, this could translate to heightened perception, raw instinct, and unrelenting focus. A perfect storm. Ego fades, pain recedes, awareness sharpens. Rage becomes clarity. Dr. Erik Halvorsen calls muscle nature's microanesthetic, with visionary side effects. It doesn't just dull fear, it rewires response. In modern terms, war trance. In Norse terms, divine madness. Now, the experts speak. Dr. Ingrid Sorensen, ethnomycologist, the same mushroom that guides Siberian shamans, likely guided berserkers. It was a sacred navigator, not a drug, but a rite. Prof. Erik Halvorsen, neuropharmacologist. Musamol is unlike other hallucinogens. It doesn't amplify emotion, it silences it. What's left is sensation, instinct, motion. It is chemistry made myth. As these voices echo, we fade between lab and longhouse beakers, beside torches, data alongside drumbeat. For centuries, we dismissed the berserkers as lunatics. Today, we're beginning to see. They were psychonauts of war. The sagas hinted. The bones remembered. Now, the science speaks. Too close, we return to where myth and molecule meet. A CGI neuron lights up its dendrites, unfurling as muscle takes hold. Overlaid, Leaf's face contorts mid-trance, frozen in transformation. This is not coincidence. It is design ritual, neurochemistry, and identity woven into one sacred act. The berserker's madness wasn't chaos, it was choreography, an altered state engineered through plant, chant, and will. We watch the mushroom again. Red, spotted, sacred. We zoom in until its gills become fractals. Until the scene becomes memory. Narration, they called it rage. But it was more. It was a sacrament, a switch, an ancient biochemical prayer. The saga ends not in myth but in mechanism. And we, centuries later, are just beginning to understand the ritual that turned warriors into legends. As the first silver threads of dawn pull through the pine canopy, Phratis steps barefoot into the heather. Her breath is visible, short and calm. She carries a carved horn filled with mead, its rim stained with age. With practiced grace, she leans low, fingers brushing moss to uncover clusters of Amanita muscaria. Only the caps with fully opened veils are chosen. Each one she lifts is blessed with a quiet invocation, then spritzed with mead through the horn's tip a runic spray, a whisper to the land. She arranges the glowing red caps on mats of woven heather, the mushrooms forming spirals around a central stone totem. To forage here is no chore. It is communion. The act draws from Norse, women's, magic, fertile, prophetic, feared. Slow motion captures do sliding down the scarlet dome of a mushroom. The grove's silence broken only by crows and the creak of pines. Inside a shadowed longhouse, Freitas and her assistants arrange the mushrooms across stretched fur pelts beside a low-burning hearth. Firelight plays over their hands as they slice each cap with obsidian blades into thin, petal-like pieces, ritual bread for spirits of war. The pieces are steeped in fermented goat's milk, transforming bitter fungi into sacrament. The milk turns golden in carved wooden bowls, its surface swirling slowly, unspoken but known. This is chemistry hidden in ritual. Drying converts ibotenic acid into musamylan, ancient, intuitive alchemy. Every movement is measured. The longhouse breathes with patience. Time, heat, and reverence unlock the hidden fire. Outside, the first rhythmic drumbeats begin to thrum like a distant heart. At the edge of a glacier-fed stream, warriors gather barefoot, bare-chested, silent. One by one, they step into the ice water, gasping as it clutches their skin. Freitas stands at the shore, eyes closed, humming low syllables of an ancient chant. Runes are shouted between breaths. Shirus, Tiwas. Isa's cold becomes crucible. Each man plunges beneath the surface, emerging reborn, lips blue, muscles tight, hearts hammering with clarity. The ritual is not just cleansing, it is threshold. The cold strips comfort, leaving only raw will. Mist hangs over the river, catching the first glints of sunlight. In the silence after immersion, the world feels sharpened. Back at the grove, Freitas moves among the warriors, now seated in a circle. She dips her fingers into a mixture of pine oil and ash. With slow precision, she draws runes and animal sigils on each warrior's chest. Alges for protection, Tiwas for courage. The symbols flicker in the firelight, smeared across sweat and skin. A young warrior shivers as the ash touches him. His breathing steadies. This isn't just preparation, it's anchoring. The sigils are contracts between man and mushroom, body and spirit. Close-ups capture ash trailing down muscle, trembling fingers resisting fear. The air smells of resin and bark. Somewhere, an antler horn sounds once low and hollow. Now the bowl is passed. The fermented mushroom milk, warmed by fire and time, is poured into a great ceremonial horn carved with animals and runes. It moves from hand to hand. Each warrior drinks, then whispers the name of the spirit they call bear, wolf, stag, raven. Each name thickens the air, as if unseen beings lean closer with every breath. The drink tastes bitter, earthy, electric. To drink is to enter pact not with men, but with something older. This is no mere tradition. It is transformation sealed in shared breath, in trembling lips pressed to the same vessel. The fire crackles. The last name is spoken. Silence falls like snow. From the edge of the grove, the drumming begins again. First slow and distant, like a heartbeat felt through the soles. Then closer, deeper. The horns return, echoing through the trees like ancestral calls. Warriors sway. Eyes close, breath synchronizes. Freitas chants a Kaland response with the drummers. The circle breathes in rhythm. As the musamyl takes hold, reality begins to bend. Limbs feel distant. Vision brightens. Thought becomes motion. The ritual beat acts on the brain. Frequencies entrain the mind. The science of this rhythm won't be discovered for centuries, but the warriors already know. The drum doesn't call, it carries. Leaf's breath grows ragged. His body rocks gently. He begins to mutter, then growl. His voice shifts deeper, primal. His hands claw into the earth. His face twists, not in pain, but in revelation. Around him, others do the same. One moans, one howls. Firelight fractures on their eyes, which now seem inhuman, dilated, glassy, staring into something vast. Their muscles twitch, gooseflesh spreads. Some cry without knowing why. Rage, grief, blood memory, it all rises now. Bitter milk sits heavy in the gut. But through the haze, a clarity emerges. They are no longer just men. They are movement, voice, heat, the trance complete. The warriors don bearskins and paint their faces with ash and blood. They move in formation, crouched low. No one speaks. They move as one. Each footfall echoes with intent. From above, they appear like a single organism, coiled, quiet, lethal. Christian monks would later call them demons. Ibn Fadlan would write of warriors who bit their shields and knew neither pain nor retreat. Their presence breaks lines before blades are drawn. It is not just the noise, but the knowing the enemy senses. These men are gone. What remains is force. Mist swirls around them. The ground trembles. The march begins. Back at the grove, Phratis watches the last shadow vanish into the trees. The grove is still again, only the totem and the empty bowl remain. She stands alone, wrapped in the same bear fur she wore at dawn. Her face holds no expression until one tear slips down her cheek. It is not sorrow, it is release. The ritual is complete. Her voice had called, her hands had blessed, and now the myth has moved. As the drums fade in the distance, she touches the soil where Leaf once knelt. There, a single red mushroom grows again. This was not madness. This was myth-making, flesh offered to the old gods in return for glory, bound by fungus and fire. The charge begins, somewhere far ahead. But here, in the grove, a woman stands at the axis of worlds, watching, waiting, remembering. Fade to black. A hush falls over the war circle. Torches crackle. Eyes lock not in aggression, but recognition. One by one, warriors lift the shared horn, drink, then rest a hand on the shoulder beside them. No words, no ranks, only breath, and blood, and bond. Psychologists call it synthetic kinship, an endogenously induced group identity. Through shared chemical states and synchronized ritual. Oxytocin and serotonin flood the system, erasing barriers between men. Dr. Sigrid Thorson puts it plainly. They weren't just a war party, they were a psychomagic unit. Ritual turned them into one self, and in Norse society, where loyalty to clan meant life or death, this was not indulgence. It was survival, social technology forged in fire and fungus. From above, the circle tightens. Fingers grip shoulders, eyes stay locked. The storm is coming, but they'll face it as one. As the muscle takes hold, individual identities begin to unravel. Faces in the firelight flicker, melt, reconstitute not as men, but as creatures of the mind. Hierarchy dissolves. The chieftain trembles beside the lowest thrall. There are no leaders, here only vessels. This is ego death, measurable in suppressed default mode network activity. As Dr. Robin Carhart Harris observed in fMRI studies of psilocybin users, in Norse terms, this was becoming Filgear warriors' spirit double, their animal soul revealed. No man stands apart. They are now one organisms, gnarling, humming, silent, alive. Phratis watches them closely as their breathing aligns, their eyes widen, their gestures sink. Identity isn't lost, it's transfigured. A war cry splits the air as Leaf slams a blade across his own chest. Blood blooms, and he smiles. In the berserker state, pain becomes myth. Gebergic musimol, combined with the body's own adrenaline, dulls nociceptors and distorts sensory processing. Accounts like Ibn Fadlan's describe warriors who laughed when pierced, who bit iron and felt no fire. Christian scribes wrote of demons in human form. But behind the frenzy is chemistry. The fear circuits quiet, the body floods with cortisol and endorphins, and wounds become secondary. Arrows snap on bare flesh, blades meet gristle and are ignored. Pain does not matter, only motion does. Leaf's grin deepens as blood runs from his ribs, soaking the fur. Later, around a new fire, an older Leaf tells the tale. His voice shakes but his eyes gleam. The ambush, the storm. The moment he thought death was certain. But he didn't die. He roared. Psychologists call this narrative transformation a survival mechanism that converts trauma into identity. The greater the fear, the greater the glory. Dr. Thorson explains. Ritual fear becomes communal mythology. Retelling the terror binds the group tighter than the fight ever did. The saga grows taller in each telling, but that doesn't make it false. It makes it sacred. Flames dance on faces as warriors nod, each adding a line, a laugh, a growl. The rite was not random. Every element, mushroom, fire, chant, beat, was engineered to induce transformation. Neuroanthropologist Dr. Navin Patel states, this was behavior control at its oldest. Not cultish, but communal neuroscience. Diagrams appear. Amanita gives GABA pathways, gives ego dissolution, gives pain suppression, gives narrative imprint. The ritual was not just for courage, it encoded loyalty. To survive, the rite was to be changed by it. To emerge was to owe it everything. Around the war circle, we see it now how every drumbeat synchronized breath, every rune held purpose. Every myth reinforced what the brain had already begun. After the battle, after the howling, after the blood, silence. Leaf sits among his brothers, eyes hollow, tears streaking his ash-painted cheeks. This is not weakness. It is ritual release. Anthropologists like Michael Winkelmann have documented similar patterns in cultures from Bali to Haiti. Trance states followed by collapse, catharsis, and community reintegration. This duality, rage and remorse, beast and man, creates psychological balance. It contains the madness within a mythic frame. The same hands that tore shields now tremble over the fire. The same lips that roared now mutter prayers. This was not possession. It was choreographic between biology, identity, and sacred release. Zoom out. Today, it looks different, but the core mechanisms remain. Military hazing, fraternity rites, team sport rituals. It evokes altered states through stress, rhythm, shared ordeal. Navy SEALs crawl through surf and sleep deprivation. Football teams chant in unison, and though mushrooms are absent, the trance remains. We haven't outgrown this, says Dr. Patel. We've just renamed it. From Iron Age fjords to modern boot camps, the playbook hasn't changed. Only the costumes have. Under mission group cohesion through temporary identity, death still works. Flash montage, soldiers chanting, athletes praying, berserkers howling. One rhythm, one story. We return to Leaf. His eyes are closed now, not in sleep, but reflection. The fire crackles, and beside him, for just a moment, the shadow of a bear flickers across the trees. This was never about the mushroom alone. The Amanita was a tool. The ritual was the truth. Musimo altered brainwaves. The saga gave them shape. Together they built warriors who truly believed they could not die. In their minds, they didn't just win battles, they became part of a myth too powerful to forget. Final words over flame and shadow. The real power wasn't in the drug alone. but in the ritual that gave it meaning. Fade to black. In the dim light of Freydis's hut, Amanita slices lie like blood-red petals on a slate slab. An iron scale tips as she measures each with the precision of a priestess and the caution of an apothecary. The difference between vision and death is a gram, maybe less. She leans close, sniffing one slice, eyes narrowing. Too sharp a scent, too spongy a skin, and it's discarded. What's left is weighed again, then soaked in goat's milk, thick sour, buffering. Outside, drums echo through the snow, but here it is, quiet calculation. Every mushroom is different, says Dr. Lisa Valtteri. Mucimol varies by age, by soil, by season. The Vikings had no labbut, they had freitas. A rune-scribed bowl receives the final slices. The firelight catches her eyes, unwavering, calculating, divine. Beside the hearth, pouches are laid out, elderflower bundles, strips of reindeer liver, crushed juniper berries. Freitas boils a thick decoction, stirring counterclockwise, humming low. In the grove, each warrior has a snipe, a sober attendant, often a young initiate or apprentice assigned to watch. They carry nothing but water and a bowl of antidote herbs. Should one collapse too pale, to still it's the snipe's duty to act. One warrior stumbles, eyes rolling. A boy runs. Freitas is already moving. She drops to her knees, presses the liver pulp against the man's gums, pours the steaming brew between clenched teeth, and begins to chant in rhythm. Slowly, his chest rises. Then again, these rites were wild, but they were never careless. Under the moon, a perfect circle takes form. Driftwood, bone, and pine stakes mark a wide ring, encircling packed snow. In the center, the fire. Around it, warriors kneel in a spiral. The shape is no accident. Concentric boundaries hold energy in, like a sonic womb. Drum beats bounce off windbreaks, weaving sound around the group. Overhead, flakes begin to fall. The sound intensifies. Anthropologists have found similar formations in druidic sites, Siberian, Yort villages, even Amazonian Maloka floors. The ring is sacred not because it's beautiful, but because it works. From above, the trance ring glows like a living sigil. Every warrior breathes in sync. Every beat reverberates toward the soul. The drums begin slow. 4:05. 6 Hertz tuned to alpha rhythms. Enough to lull the waking mind, to let the other one rise. Freitas steps between torches. Each flame placed not for warmth, but projection. Shadows dance across bark and cloak, twisting into shapes, birds, beasts, ancestors. The warriors begin to stare, and the shapes stare back. Low-frequency rhythm destabilizes the visual cortex, explains Professor Halvorsen. Add flickering shadows, and your brain does the rest. They saw gods because they were supposed to. In this world of fire and drum, the hallucinations are not accidents, they are engineered. Leaf blinks, and the tree before him becomes a serpent. He exhales, the trance deepens. A cough, a shudder, a fall. One warrior seizes mid-howl and crumples. Silence hits like thunder. Freitas is already at his side, pressing her hands to his chest, chanting louder, now steady, rhythmic. His limbs are stiff, mouth slack. A snipe crouches beside her, holding a bowl of steaming elderflower and liver. She forces a swallow, waits another. The other warriors hold the rhythm. No panic, only watching. Steam curls from his mouth, a twitch, a moan. He returns. The trance resumes. Even in this sacred madness, mortality was a known guest. But so was resurrection. This wasn't chaos, Professor Halvorsen says, as we cut between the grove and a modern sensory pod. It was controlled through overload and deprivation. Drums filled the ears. Shadows crowded the eyes. The cold bit the skin. The milk clouded the gut. The ritual isolated and saturated every sense. It was a chamber, says Dr. Valtteri, not unlike our labs, but built of bark and bone. Split screen. A monk-like figure steps into a padded MRI scanner, and Freitas steps into the trance ring. Each seeks the same thing. Altered perception, truth, surrender. The Viking chamber just came with more fire. When it ends in pieces. Some warriors lie trembling, soaked in sweat, whispering prayers to the dirt. Others roar, eyes alight, fists clenched. One weeps uncontrollably. Another sings a saga, half-remembered. Freitas moves between them, murmuring old words, hands like wind. Not all return the same. Not all remember the same. But all passed through something, a place with no maps. The ritual, Dr. Valtteri says, wasn't about safety. It was about survivable transcendence. And so, in the grove, the fire dims. The ring breaks. The warriors scatter, quiet again. Freitas stands alone. She extinguishes the final torch. Smoke rises, then disappears. Above, the sky is still. Below, the earth remembers. Life and death, dancing on the edge of the trance, fade to black. Soft light filters through canvas walls. A group sits in silence, eyes closed, breath deep, guided by calm voices. At the center, a trained facilitator offers a small capsule, not a horn. The setting is a forest retreat, but the echoes of a firelit grove are unmistakable. Today's psychedelic therapy sessions for PTSD and end-of-life anxiety borrow more than the molecule. They borrow the structure, ritual, support, transformation. At Johns Hopkins, clinical outcomes with psilocybin dramatically improve when paired with ceremonial guidance. Patients speak not just of relief, but of rebirth. Dr. Emma Clark, a clinical psychologist, puts it simply. Ritual is the kino pill, works without context. As one participant journals in silence beside a candle, we cut back Freitas, placing runes in ash. Different eras, same map. In a sleek San Francisco apartment, a coder places a microdose strip on his tongue. Across the world, an Olympic diver sits submerged in a float tank. Lungs empty, mind still. Both are chasing altered states, not for ecstasy, but for efficiency. They're invoking the same neural mechanics that once fueled berserkers: ego suppression, amygdala dampening, enhanced sensory integration. But now, the aim is flow, not frenzy. A 2022 Stanford study on athletes using altered states shows clear links between trance training and performance spikes. Silicon Valley biohackers pursue the same without drums, without mushrooms, but with breath, data, and quiet desperation. On screen, we cut between a breath-hold dive and Leaf's cold plunge in the stream. Both descend to rise again. A facilitator dims the lights, checks the playlist, and places a blanket gently over a trembling participant. Outside, trees sway. Inside, the music builds, not drums, this time, but ambient synths tuned for theta wave resonance. Modern psychedelic protocols mirror ancient structures. Clear intention, sacred container, guided return. Maps, manuals include everything from environmental cues to integration circles, the fire pit turned debrief. Trip-sitter's guide with the same grounding presence Freitas once offered. Dr. Clark notes, no medicine works without myth. The body must know it's crossing a threshold. The screen splits. A retreat group breathing together. Freitas painting runes in ash. Ancient practice hasn't disappeared. It's been rewrapped in language, tech, and gentle tones, but the core remains. But not all altered states are sacred. Cut to a stressed-out young professional, microdosing at dawn, laptop open. Email, pings, stacking. There's no ritual, no guide, only the hunger for performance. The berserker rite made monsters, yes, but it also had containment, a beginning, middle, and end. Today, some chase those highs with no circle, no fire, no freighters. When you strip away meaning, all you have left is chemical leverage. Warns Dr. Marcus Reed. History warns us, power without care kills. Flash cuts, a berserker howling mid-trance, a coder slumped mid-crash. The method is old. The danger is, to a line between weapon and wound is always thin. Without story, we're just hacking the brain. With it we're becoming. Dr. Clark leans forward on screen. The ritual container matters as much as the molecule. It holds the person as they fall apart and reassemble. Dr. Reed adds, every era thinks it's reinventing the wheel, but altered states have always walked the edge of revelation and ruin. Side by side, we see an MRI scanner pulsing and a Norse trance ring blazing, both designed to take us somewhere else. The psychonaut, like the berserker, must prepare, must return, must mean it. Today's seekers may not wear bear pelts, but they still chase silence, still seek the beast beneath the ribs, and they still need someone waiting when they return. A mushroom rests in the palm of a hand, one bloodied, the other open. Freitas fades into a modern guide, her runes now tattoos, her chants now soft reminders to breathe. The berserkers were proto-psychonauts. Their path was sacred but wrapped in violence. Today, we stand at the same door, but we choose how we walk through it. Will we chase rage or healing? Will we make myth or just extract its molecules? Our era's challenge is to reclaim the mushrooms, gifts without the gore. The last image lingers. The mushroom between two fingers, held not as a weapon, but as a key. The fire fades, the silence remains. Fade to black. The tide whispers across the shale once more. Where once the war circle raged, now only silence remains, wind through pine, surf against stone. Amanita caps lie half-submerged in wet sand, their red dimmed but unbroken. Freitas walks the shoreline alone, her fur cloak damp with salt, her hands weathered but steady. In her palm, the last cap sunderpelled, flecked with sea mist. She holds it for a breath, then scatters it into the waves. The rite is over. The path honored, the old gods, fed, cut to present. A woman in a lab coat closes a vial, initials it with care, and steps into the light. She looks across the same fjord, morning fog curling low across the water. In her gaze, wonder, reverence, recognition. The mushroom's journey has crossed more than land, it's crossed meaning itself. From blood to healing. From raw to reflection. On the tide, a red cap drifts slowly out of frame. Narration returns, quiet and reverent. From sacred groves to modern labs, the mushroom's journey is one of transformation, of fear into myth, of pain into power. In the berserker's age, the mushroom was consumed to become beast untouchable, terrifying. Today, it is taken in quiet rooms, among candles and consent, to confront not enemies, but the shadows within. But the hunger is the same. To step beyond the known self, to pass through fire and return remade. The screen fades to black as the narrator offers the final reflection. They took mushrooms to become beasts in battle. Today, we take them to heal our minds. The real reason has always been the same, to transcend ourselves, a pause, a breath. What will you seek? When you sip the sacrament, the final shot lingers. A single red amanita cap resting on wet stone, its surface pulsing faintly like a heartbeat, like memory. It glows against the fading light, untouched by time. The drumbeat returns low, slow then fades, with the tide. Black screen, silence.